Prior to this year's offseason, the Dallas Mavericks' biggest free agent acquisition excluding trades was either Chandler Parsons, Monte Ellis, or a past his prime version of Shawn Marion. Basically, when the Mavs tried to contend during the twilight years of Dirk Nowitzki's career, they had very little to convince superstar players to come and play in Dallas, which had never really been a top NBA free agent destination. But that narrative just might have changed this offseason when five-time All-Star and four-time NBA champion Klay Thompson agreed to a 3-year sign-and-trade deal worth $50 million to join the Mavericks. Well, the price, both in Thompson's contract and the very fact that he departed from the only franchise he's ever played with in the Golden State Warriors, indicates that Klay isn't the same two-way player who he once was. But to be clear, Thompson is still someone who's made more three-pointers than anybody but Steph Curry over the past 2 seasons, and who still combines long-distance volume and accuracy at a level that 95% of the NBA can touch. His arrival in Dallas shows that this franchise is totally different from before. Well, obviously, the process of change for the Mavs began with the emergence of their generational superstar Luka Doncic, but it was Nico Harrison taking charge of the team's basketball operations in 2021 that further accelerated such process. It was Harrison's prior ties with Kyrie Irving that gave both parties trust with Kyrie's decision to re-sign with the Mavs last offseason, and with such long-term commitment began the process that led Dallas back to the NBA Finals this year, which scenario obviously factored in with Klay Thompson's decision to come to Dallas. Well, prior to acquiring Klay Thompson, Dallas already made some calculated moves during the previous trade deadline by trading for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford in an attempt to upgrade their defensive flexibility, which eventually served as the team's backbone throughout their takeover of the Western Conference. But in the NBA Finals, the burden placed on Luka and Kyrie to provide scoring just proved to be too massive to compete against the Boston Celtics. As in the Finals, Dallas shot just 31% from deep, while also scoring almost 10 points per 100 possessions less than they produced during the regular season. So obviously, the acquisition of Klay Thompson is an attempt by Dallas to strike a balance between what turned them into a contender and what caused them to fall short when it mattered the most, as despite him already being 34 years old, Klay is still someone who averaged almost 20 points per game the past 2 seasons and who still converted exactly 40% of the nearly 10 3-point attempts per game he took within that span of time. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's talk more about why adding Klay Thompson just might be worth the risk for the Dallas Mavericks. So let's get to it. Obviously, it was trading Tim Hardaway Jr. that created this path for the Dallas Mavericks to acquire Klay Thompson. First, from a financial perspective, but also with how Dallas most likely imagines Klay will fit with the team as an upgraded replacement for Hardaway Jr. As over the past 3 seasons, Hardaway attempted the 6th most spot-up 3-pointers in the entire NBA, but Klay Thompson ranked first in the entire league for that category within that span of time. And it's not just the superior shot volume, as Klay has also converted on those spot-up threes at a much better rate than Hardaway. There's a reason Klay Thompson is an all-time great 3-point shooter who has finished with either the best or the second best catch-and-shoot 3-point mark 8 times over the last 11 NBA seasons, including last year, which was considered a down year for him. Now in Dallas, Klay will be spotting up while Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving run pick and rolls, which should be a devastating thought for opponents, especially considering Luka has also led the NBA in terms of assists leading to 3-pointers over the past 5 seasons. And while Klay isn't the same scoring threat that he was in his prime, he's still obviously a much more dangerous option on those sort of catch-and-shoot looks than either one of PJ Washington, Derrick Jones, Josh Green, Dante Exum, or Maxi Kleber, who the Boston Celtics helped off to neutralize the Mavs offense during the NBA Finals. Plus, it definitely helps that the Mavs' other new arrivals are solid floor spacers as well. Quentin Grimes shot nearly 37% from 3 in New York before he was traded to the Pistons last season, while Naji Marshall also came fresh off a career-best season from deep, where he shot almost 39% for the Pelicans. But it's just that no one in the Mavs' current roster combines high volume, high efficiency, and high-level 3-point shooting the way Klay Thompson does. Leave him open to load up on the Luka and Kyrie pick and roll, and you're inviting one of the greatest shooters in history to torch you. Play him one-on-one and he still might score on you, as Klay has shot 3-pointers at a better rate than anyone else last season when a defender was within 4 feet. But then even when you overplay him on a double team, suddenly the driving, passing, and rolling lanes for his teammates just become wider than ever. Just like in this possession, you can see Trace Jackson-Davis with a ball in the post, but then Klay starts using double stagger screens from Chris Paul and Corey Joseph to free himself up. Peyton Pritchard does a good job of switching on him, but Klay's shooting gravity just forces Al Horford to ice him on the pick and roll, which gives Klay an open passing lane where he sets up Jackson-Davis on the easy roll to the basket. Then here, you can see Golden State running a veer action with Draymond Green setting a high screen for Steph before he sets a side off-ball screen for Klay. Now, two defenders have their attention on Klay from behind the arc, which opens up the entire paint for Draymond as Saric finds him on a cut to the basket. So in Dallas, you can just imagine Klay leveraging all the defensive attention he'll draw to create some alley-oop lobs for guys like Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively, or to allow PJ Washington to have more open cutting lanes to the basket. But in addition to those things, Klay should also help unlock other sorts of looks for Dallas, which I think should also include some pathways for Luka Doncic to not do so much of everything offensively, as Doncic notably ranked second in the NBA last season in terms of usage rate, time of possession, and touches per game. And for Dallas, one disadvantage of relying so heavily on Luka and Kyrie to create off a live dribble was that, even if they're cooking, the offense can sometimes become stationary and bog down a bit. Just like in the NBA Finals when Boston switches forced Dallas to average 43 fewer passes per game while also scoring almost 10 fewer points per 100 possessions than they did during the regular season. But the addition of Klay Thompson and his constant off-ball movement should introduce a different dynamic to the Mavs offense. Klay is actually someone who uses off-ball screens and pin downs very well and who's very comfortable relocating without the ball to get an open shot. In fact, last season, according to NBA Advanced Statistics, Klay actually traveled more miles on offense and also at a higher average speed than any player on the Mavs roster. This play starts with Steph Curry trying to create something from the top of the key, but simultaneously, you can see Klay moving away from Devin Booker from the baseline going to the corner. As Booker is caught napping, Klay uses double stagger screens from Wiggins and Draymond. He gets so much daylight and he knocks down the wide open three-pointer. Then in this play, as Kevon Looney makes the entry pass to Kuminga on the block, you can see Steph Curry setting a pin down screen on two defenders, which allows Klay to get into motion. The defense tries to recover, but Looney provides a second off-ball screen, giving Klay just enough time to launch his shot against the late closeout. Overall, a player of Klay's caliber who combines constant movement with dead-eye shooting definitely commands so much defensive attention on the floor, which is why it's not hard to envision Klay popping loose behind off-ball screens set by Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively. And it's not hard to imagine Klay and Kyrie Irving running some of those guard-to-guard screen actions which Golden State used to punish defenses for the longest time, which actions could definitely work in Dallas, especially considering Kyrie Irving has just been really great moving off the ball since he came to play with Luka. In fact, Kyrie actually logged more screen assists last season than he had in any year since his final season in Cleveland. But as good as Klay's offensive fit in Dallas looks, there are still some questions to be answered. Will Dallas add more off-ball movement sets than what they already ran for Tim Hardaway Jr.? Or if and when Klay's jumper suffers a cold streak once again like it did early last season, will he be able to effectively contribute enough elsewhere, probably as a cutter or more importantly as a defender to make up for it? Well, Klay isn't the same guy he was defensively during his all-defensive team days. As of late, he's spent more time defending power forwards rather than guards. In fact, last season, according to NBA Advanced Statistics, Klay's most frequent defensive matchups were Aaron Gordon, Harrison Barnes, and Kevin Durant. This might pose a risk, especially now that Klay is expected to start in Dallas, in that he'll be taking on the role that Derrick Jones Jr. held most of last season, which is that of a point-of-attack insulation against opposing guards, which shielded Luka and Kyrie from having to spend most of their energy on the defensive end. Well, obviously, the Mavs still have guys who can play that role off the bench, with Dante Exum and now also Naji Marshall and Quentin Grimes, who are also both solid and versatile defenders. But the thing is, it wouldn't help if those guys are not on the floor to close games. Well, if Klay Thompson continues to have trouble guarding quicker wings, that job could always fall on PJ Washington in the starting lineup, but then, what effects might that have on the Mavs' defensive coverages? Or if adjustments in the starting lineup's defense appear to be problematic, could Jason Kidd follow in the footsteps of Steve Kerr, asking Klay to come off the bench and bring Naji Marshall in the starting lineup instead? But for all we know, perhaps the new situation can summon some resurgency from Klay defensively even if his legs aren't the same after multiple surgeries. Or perhaps the continuous growth of Dereck Lively as a switchable defender could be enough to mitigate all those potential defensive issues. But whatever the case may be, the Mavs front office office are surely betting that swapping out Derrick Jones, Josh Green, and Tim Hardaway for Klay, Naji Marshall, and Quentin Grimes will prove to be enough of a collective shooting and movement upgrade that such offseason gains will outweigh any defensive slippage on the team. And if they happen to be right, the Mavs just might have enough depth, versatility, and firepower to make a repeat run on top of the Western Conference, which in turn should give Klay Thompson a shot at winning his 5th NBA title. Well, how precisely things will work out for Dallas is something yet to be seen, but Klay Thompson's arrival definitely signifies change for a franchise that has long fallen short in terms of convincing star-caliber players to increase the team's championship ceiling. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video, but what are your thoughts on the Klay Thompson acquisition by the Dallas Mavericks? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.